name is Ethan Hollifield, professional guide here with Southern Appalachian Anglers. In today's video, we're going to go over my original rod vault and my rod vault ST that I use for guiding. Just some things about what I like about them, what I use them for, maybe some suggestions for improvement. Just, you know, give a general idea of what you're purchasing when you get either one of these two setups. Overall here, I've been very happy with them. I've had this one for around 3 years, and I've had the ST over here for my spinning gear for roughly around 4-ish months. So I've had some experience with both of these. I reckon we'll start out here with the original rod vault. This is the first one Denver Outfitters came with. Holds 3 fly rods up to 10 feet long. Here's a 10-foot 7-weight Remington vise. Pull this out here real quick. You can store 3 fly rods up to around an 8-weight fully rigged. This one right here is a 7-weight, but it's got a Remington ID reel that's rated for 6 and 7 and 8-weight lines. And then this one is a 5-weight. My nymphing setups here. As you can see, the rod's really easy to pull out of the tubes. It's rated to hold a fly rod roughly around 10 feet long. They generally, for the most part, go back in really easy. The easiest way I found to put them in is to kind of hold the rod up here, kind of get the blank touching the top part of the tube, and then gently pushing it in like this. Very gingerly and gently. If you got a dropper tag on any of your rods, like on this one right here, you want to make sure it doesn't catch. You just be very gently and pull that through. Because sometimes if you just shove this in here and you got a spare hook kind of hanging right here, it will catch right there and it will break off sometimes. You just want to kind of be careful with it. Push it in nice and gently. Same thing with this rod here. Up here at the top. And the reason why I'm doing this is because both of these rod vaults are not single piece tubes. They, like with this one over here, if you'll come over here with me, each one of these setups, I believe all of their rod vaults come in 2 pieces with these couplings up here. There is a little bit of a gap in between these couplings, and I found that if you don't put the rods the way I did a second ago, touching the top of the tube going in, the guides will sometimes catch right here, and it has been out a couple of them very minimally, but it's not been too bad. Just something to kind of be aware of. It's kind of common sense, but overall I've been really happy with it. It's really easy to slide the rods in and out, as you can see there. It will not fit though a 9 or a 10 weight reel, so if you have a 9 or a 10 weight rod, I think they offer a couple of bigger reel housings now, but it will not fit in the original one. But for most general fishermen who do any trout or smallmouth fishing and throw anywhere from like a 1 to a 8 weight rod, this will serve you really well for the most part. Over here is the newest addition that Denver Outfitters came out with recently. This is the rod vault ST. It's advertised to hold 6 rods, a combination of spinning and bait casting setups up to 8 feet long. So I've found that while you can fit 6 rods in here, it's much safer and better on your equipment to put 2 rods if they'll fit. So these are a couple of my smallmouth rods. And I generally have found too that it's easier to put them in with rod socks as well. I never put them in without rod socks just to help protect some of these bigger guides, especially on sitting rods. These are both 7-foot medium light action die with the tools. I've got some 3000 series Shimano spinning reels on here. With the rod socks, with the reel handles, that was a little bit dirty right there, with the reel handles oriented facing back towards the butt of the rod, it will fit in there relatively easily, but trying to fit a 3rd rod in here of the same size, it feels like I'm going to break one of the rods trying to fit them in there. So just to play it safe, I only keep at a maximum of 4 spinning rods or 4 bait casting rods in there at a time. With the rod socks too, if you do have something like this shad wrap right there with treble hooks, sometimes the treble hooks will get caught in the rod socks, but it's not really that big of a deal. I'll fix this here in just a second actually. But one nice thing about this setup is that it will fit a 8-foot heavy or extra heavy action rod with a big swim bait reel, one about like this. This is a rod I use for swim baits and big muskies, as you can see by the big glide bait right there. It will fit 1 up to 2 of these in here at a time, but I've also fit A rod like this is an 8-foot heavy action swim bait rod with a smaller bait caster in the same tube. So that's kind of a nice feature. It's one of the things I'm excited about, being a muskie guy myself. I'm sort of a muskie fanatic. I can fit a lot of my lighter river setups and some of my bigger swim bait rods in there as well. The same thing, what I always do is I generally hit the top of the tube. Sometimes easier with the bait casting rods, especially with a big one like this, to turn it upside down, and it will fit it in there with the bait. You just gotta kind of eyeball it, be relatively careful with bait slides in first, the way the treble hooks don't catch, and you can put it all the way up there. Same thing with these rods here. I'm not gonna worry about that shad wrap right there. I'm just gonna go ahead and just gently guide these in. If you notice, I've got them kind of staggered as well, so I've got the tips sort of uneven, that way the reels will fit in there. Nice. This thing back. I'm gonna touch the top, gently slide it in. With spinning gear, you want to be a little bit extra careful because of these guides right here, closest to the reel, since they are a little bit bigger and stick out. You just want to be careful with those. That's why I use the rod socks. Kind of keeps those from getting bent out. Gently put these in. One nice thing about this too is I've got this strap right here with a buckle. Just keeps them from bouncing around. You can snug this up, kind of butt it up against your handles if you got an extra long rod like this 8-footer right here. And as you can see, it all fits in there. Both of these setups lock, and they do give you a set of keys with them as well. So that's one nice feature, especially with me as a guide. I can leave all my setups rigged and ready to rock and roll after one day's trip leading on to the next day. As far as mounting them, assembling them, it's relatively easy. It took me about an hour for each one, and really the only reason it took me an hour was just to kind of get everything lined up the way that I wanted it to, with the way I have my crossbar set up here on my truck. As far as them making a lot of noise, on the highway, they're relatively quiet. I never really notice them. I do notice with the original rod file over here, with it being 10 feet long, it does tend to shake a little bit, but I've never really worried about it coming undone. What I've done and what I've found kind of helps, you know, if you're worried about it, and it gives you just a little bit more peace of mind as far as securing it. You can take some additional nuts and locking washers here and put these in at the bottom, and that way it'll kind of hold these bolts in, these clamps, just a little bit better. Just to, you know, if you're worried about it giving you a peace of mind. When I first put this one on, I did it this way because I wasn't really sure how these were going to hold up at first, and I just kind of left them on there. But I haven't done that on these, and they've done just fine. They're relatively lightweight. Haven't really noticed much of a difference in gas mileage, if at all. I have a V6 TRD off-road Tacoma. Even with them sitting high up like that on the crossbars, never really noticed a detriment to gas mileage in any way. A couple suggestions though for the average Joe trying to buy one of these. With both of these setups here, you are hitting on bare plastic, and I don't know if you can kind of tell on this reel right here. I'll pull this one back out again. When it hits up against the bare plastic, you will get a little bit of wear and tear on your reels, as you can see, like right there on the bottom of that one. I've also noticed that you gotta be careful with your lines here as well. If you're putting a fly rod in, you want to kind of pull out just a little bit of slack like this. See, I don't have it completely tight. I'm just gonna pull just a little bit of slack out right there, because the line actually sits like this inside the tube. So you do have a little bit of pressure on that line. And what helps by putting in that slack, or what you're doing with that, is it keeps your flies that are rigged up right here from coming. If you're especially going down a lot of gravel roads, a lot of bumpy surfaces, sometimes if you have everything really tight, I've noticed that this fly, if it's on a hook keeper right here, generally tends to pop out easier unless you put in just a little bit of slack, because you're already tightening it up by sticking it in there anyway, and the line's kind of sitting right here on the entrance to the tube. One suggestion, maybe get some sort of padding, foam padding, to put right here to maybe protect your reel just a little bit better. Just a thin layer ought to do it. And just be mindful too of that fly line as well. Just pull in just a little bit of slack. I'm gonna come in from the top, forward, watch that dropper. Set in just like this. So, excellent. So if I had to buy this all over again, I definitely would. Overall, I give it around an 8 out of 10 as far as design and convenience. For me as a guide, it's awesome. Because again, I can, you know, be done with one trip one day and then go on the next trip the next day with the exact same setup and not have to worry about re-rigging everything. Everything's in the truck ready to rock and roll. If I were just an average angler, if I was someone that was fishing less than 180 days of year, I don't know if I would necessarily purchase either one of these or not, or if I did, I think they offer maybe some single or just 2-rod fly rod variations of these over here. And that would be the one, if I were going to get one, it's just an average everyday angler, that'd be the one I kind of lean towards, just because it's really not that much of a time difference in terms of, you know, throwing your rod through the black glass like I used to do in my old Tacoma, or if you've got a car like a Suburban or an Explorer, you can throw them in through the tailgate, and it doesn't really save you much in the way of time. However, for me, where I'm taking people out the majority of the year on guide trips, I don't like having rods just thrown in where people are sitting, especially with spinning gear, and especially if I'm using something with treble hooks. That is one advantage of having something like this. If you throw a lot of jerk baits, crankbaits, things of that nature, and if you're a guide and you've got your rod sitting up here in the front seat, you probably know what I mean when you end up with someone with a treble hook in their pants leg. And that generally is not a fun way to start out your day. So having your rods up here does eliminate that and just makes it easier for your clients and a little bit more convenient anyway. But I think that's pretty much it as far as the overview. Like I said, overall, I'm very happy with these. And one of the reasons we wanted to make this video is because there's just not a lot of information from guides or other anglers on the internet right now about the pros and cons of these, and, you know, whether you should buy one or not. But if you have any other questions about either of these or any of our gear that we use, feel free to give us a call here at Southern Appalachian Anglers. Hope you all have a wonderful holiday season and catch lots of big fish, because it's cold right now where we're at. And hopefully you go somewhere warm.